Okay, this is your first Q&A time writing at 120 words per minute. Your proper names are Mr. Singer, Pickerel, Internal Revenue Service, S&H Leasing and Service, Paul Hitchcock, Chapter 11, Wausau, and Bankruptcy Court. Ready? Mr. Singer, did you make any payments out of your checking accounts for anything except ordinary, everyday expenses?
I paid $1,000 to the bank for the interest.
Interest on what?
In the note that we have there.
Are you talking about the property in Pickerel?
Yes.
You say the payment was for interest. Was part of it also on the principal?
No, it was all for interest.
I thought you said the balance due on that loan was about $40,000.
That's correct.
What is your monthly payment supposed to be?
There is no monthly payment. It's on a 90-day note. The bank renewed the 90-day note for another 90 days, and I paid the interest in the amount of $1,000.
I see. Mr. Singer, do you have any assets other than the ones we have talked about?
No.
Do you expect to receive any money back from the Internal Revenue Service this year on your income tax?
I don't know. We have not filed it yet.
Did you receive a refund last year?
No.
How much income did you report last year as nearly as you recall?
As I recall, it was a little over $40,000.
Was your wife drawing a salary from your trucking company?
Yes.
And what was her salary?
I think it was $100 a week.
Would you tell me where the funds came from that to comprise the $40,000 figure you reported?
My wife and I drew $26,000 from the trucking company. In addition, I also have a half interest in a leasing company from which I drew $275 a week.
You say you have a half interest in a leasing company? What is the name of the company?
It is the S&H Leasing and Service.
Is that a corporation?
Yes.
And you hold 50% of the outstanding stock?
That is correct.
Who holds the other 50% of the stock?
Paul Hitchcock.
Do you know what the value of that company is?
It is operating in the red right now.
You also own an interest in a moving company, is that right?
That's included in the Chapter 11.
They are in the Chapter 11?
Yes.
That company is still operating, is it not?
Not right now, no.
No?
No.
Is the stock that you hold in the moving company separate from the stock that you hold in the trucking company?
No.
Same company?
Same company.
Now, you have a claim filed in the trucking company bankruptcy for yourself for monies that might be due and owing to you?
Have I?
Yes.
I haven't yet, but I am going to, I guess.
Do you have an idea as to the total amount of money that is due you as a creditor of the bankruptcy company?
I would say about $200,000.
Would that claim all be due directly to you, or is any part of it due to your wife as well?
No, that would be due to the bank at Wausau for the license, and the rest of it would be due to us.
There was some question that came up at the last hearing in the bankruptcy court relative to a certain motor vehicle. I believe it was a camper. The question was whether it was owned by you or whether it was an asset of the company. Is it your position that that particular vehicle is owned by you?
Yes.
Okay, this is your second Q&A time writing at 120 words per minute. Your proper names are Mr. Hunter, Mr. A.J. Webb, Mr. Webb, Mr. Arthur Lang, Exhibit number 1, Mr. Lang, Mr. T.K. Albert, Exhibit number 2, Mr. Perkins, and Webb. Ready? Mr. Hunter, when was the first time you had occasion to have contact of any kind with Mr. A.J. Webb?
In April of 1998, our company undertook the appraisal of a piece of property for him. This was a piece of vacant property containing approximately 10,000 square feet.
That was in April of 1998. Is that correct?
That is correct. And in May of 1998, Mr. Webb was referred to me by one of the gentlemen in our appraisal department who asked me to locate a buyer for the property.
Was that Mr. Arthur Lang?
Who recommended me?
Yes. Is that the gentleman you were talking about?
I believe it is, but I am not sure.
Mr. Hunter, I show you a document marked Exhibit number 1 and ask you if that is the appraisal to which you referred in your testimony just a moment ago.
Yes, it is.
Before you talked to Mr. Lang, had you had any conversation or contact with Mr. Webb?
No.
Did you have anything to do with the preparation of the appraisal dated April 21, 1998?
No.
Mr. Hunter, have you produced some documents here this afternoon pursuant to the subpoena that was served on you?
Yes, I have.
Mr. Hunter, are you an appraiser?
In the course of my business, yes.
You do appraisal work?
Yes, sir.
Do you know a Mr. T.K. Albert?
No.
Were you aware that there was apparently an additional appraisal made of this property for Mr. Webb?
No, I was not.
Mr. Hunter, I show you a document marked Exhibit number 2 and ask if you have ever seen that document before.
I have not.
Did you ever discuss either of these two appraisals with Mr. Webb?
Yes. I discussed the appraisal by our company with Mr. Webb.
Did Mr. Webb ever tell you that he had a second appraisal made?
Not to my knowledge, no.
When was the last time you discussed the appraisal of your company with Mr. Webb?
In May of 1998, when Mr. Webb called me.
Now, would you tell us what Mr. Webb said and what you said during the course of that conversation?
Well, he asked me if I would undertake the selling of the property. He told me that we had made an appraisal of $45,000. I told him that price was in the ballpark as far as I was concerned.
What price was that?
$45,000. I told him we would have to find a user for this vacant property, and I would undertake the assignment under an exclusive arrangement.
Was this the first time you talked to Mr. Webb about this particular piece of property?
Yes.
Did Mr. Webb tell you who he was?
I don't recall, other than he was the owner of the property.
Mr. Hunter, did you have any other conversation with Mr. Webb in regard to the ownership of the property or who owned the property?
Only that it was in an estate.
Did he ever tell you about a trust that owned the property?
I believe he sent me a copy of a trust agreement.
Would you happen to recall when that was?
Well, it had to be after the signing of the contract in January and the discussion with Mr. Perkins.
Did you ever have any other exclusive listing contract signed by anyone in the Webb family
No,
other than the one you testified about today?
no,
That's the only one,
correct.
and that's the one you are operating under at the This is your first Q&A time, writing at 100 words per minute. Your proper names are Mr. Chapman, Ken, and German Shepherds. Ready? Mr. Chapman, do you know what time of day the fire occurred?
I understand it was sometime in the afternoon.
Do you know if any of the employees came in to work on that Saturday?
Ken and I were there Saturday morning,
What time did you get there?
about 10:30 or 11.
Who locked up?
I believe both Ken and I left through the back door.
What time did you leave?
We left about noon.
What was the occasion for going there that Saturday morning?
We generally met on Saturday morning for production purposes.
And you were there about an hour or an hour and a half?
Something like that.
Was there any burglar alarm system in this building?
Not at the time of the fire.
Had there been one?
Yes. I don't recall why it was disconnected. We had 2 dogs.
Do you mean the burglar alarm system was in the building when you rented it?
There was one there, but it wasn't hooked up. We had another one. I think we may have purchased it for the other building, but we never hooked it up. Prior to the fire, we had 1 dog left of the 2 German Shepherds that we had had for about 5 years.
Did you ever have a burglar alarm system hooked up?
I don't recall.
Out of which rear door did you leave that Saturday?
Out of the entrance door for employees.
Is that the main door in the rear?
Yes,
Would that be on the wall that faces west?
that's right.
Would it be on the south side of that wall?
It would be on the west side of the wall.
Well, the rear faces west, doesn't it?
Yes, it would be the south side of the west wall.
West wall?
Right.
Okay. What kind of a lock did the door have?
It had a self-locking door.
As soon as you closed the door, it was locked. Is that right?
That's right.
You didn't have to use a key to lock it?
That's right.
Was it the kind of lock if you were on the inside and it was in a lock position, you had to use a key to unlock it?
No.
Was there a knob on the door inside?
You could use the knob, yes.
Was there glass on that door?
No.
When you left, was the front door locked? I mean the door going into the office.
At that time, we did not lock the doors to the office.
I mean the door that went from the outside into the office.
From the shop into the office?
From the outside into the office.
On the front of the building?
On the front of the building.
I don't know if it was locked. I don't think we came in or tried that door.
There was also an overhead door in the front of the building.
Right.
How was that kept locked?
It had a sliding latch that tied.
Sorry. Christy's on her. This is your second Q&A time writing at 100 words per minute. Your proper names are Ted Graff, Jim Becker, Ken Murdoch, Art Sherwin, and Punch Press. Ready? Did they also keep a piece of pipe jammed into the track?
On one of the doors they did from time to time.
Was that the front one?
It may have been the front one. If the spring would break on the back door, they would use the front door until they had time to repair it.
Now, there was a side door right next to the overhead door. Is that right?
Right.
This door was on the north wall.
Right.
Do you know if that door was locked when you left that Saturday morning?
I don't know. That door wasn't used much in the last year.
There was also a side door on the west side that led into a paint room. Is that correct?
I don't think that was ever used.
And there was also an overhead door on the west wall. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was that locked when you left that Saturday morning?
I don't recall. I imagine it was.
Who had keys to these doors?
Ted Graff.
How do you spell his last name?
Graff.
What was his position at the time of the fire?
For the most part, he was second shift foreman.
Did anybody else have keys?
Jim Becker had keys. He was the day shift foreman. And of course, Ken and I had keys.
Ken who?
Ken Murdoch.
Did anybody else have keys to your knowledge?
I don't know if Art Sherwin had keys or not. He may have had a key to the back door.
What was his position?
He was a punch press operator.
And you had keys?
That's right.
Were there different keys for each door?
I believe so.
Did you have keys for all the doors?
I don't think I had a key to the back door.
That's the door you left from the Saturday of the fire?
That's right.
Ted Graff had keys for what door?
I don't know what keys he had. He may have had keys to both doors.
How many keys did Ken Murdoch have?
He may have had keys to both doors.
And Jim Becker?
I would say the back door.
Were any keys left inside the building?
Keys were kept inside the safe.
Spare keys?
Yes.
Was that safe kept locked?
Not during the day, no.
Was it locked when you left that Saturday?
Oh, I think it was. It is always locked up Friday evening.
Do you think anybody else had keys?
I could not say for sure.
Did you have the locks changed when you rented the building?
The lock on the back door was changed a couple of times. The inner office doors may have been changed too.
I am talking about exterior doors.
I think the front door was changed also.
Why was the lock on the rear door changed a couple of times?
I don't know if it was because of employee termination or if the lock broke. I know we put in